Many thanks for your company. Welcome back. Trade Minister Alan Kyerematen has rejected suggestions by the IMF that the Continental Free Trade Agreement will affect job creation in Ghana and also affect local businesses. Speaking at the Meet the Press series in Accra yesterday, Alan Kyerematen rather noted the agreement will be a game changer in the marketing and retail space for Ghana and Africa.
I'm surprised, and I don't have access to what you are quoting. But if the IMF is saying that the CFTA is going to cause a major challenge to us in terms of job creation, for me, it doesn't add up. This is going to be the single most important stimulus for investment in Africa, because everybody is targeting the African market. But if the investor knows that by locating in an African country, he can export duty-free, quota-free, well, he will bring the investment to the country. So how could that be a disincentive in terms of employment creation? Please check your facts, or ask the IMF to check their facts. I'm not sure what you're talking about.
And in another development, local car maker Kantanka Automobile is to benefit from government's under one district, one factory policy. There have been concerns the Ghanaian inventor is not enjoying government support to make his business thrive. But Mr. Kyerematen says Kantanka Automobile will be supported to expand to be able to export some of its products.
I think that for me, the real value of this new policy thrust on the automobile sector is not just waiting for the big boys to come from outside Ghana to invest. It is really for Kantanka. And it's unfortunate that he has had to go through this period of trial, but now that you have a government that appreciates the efforts of local companies, we are putting a policy to make sure that Kantanka not only survives, but will start exporting under this continental free trade area to other African countries. That is what it is. So they are going to be the biggest beneficiary, of course. So I think that Apostle Safo, the Kantanka brand, you see what benefits they will derive from this.
Now, the Ghana Revenue Authority, the Ghana Investment Promotion Center, and the auditing firm Ernst & Young have stepped up an educational campaign to reduce the negative impact of transfer pricing on the country. According to tax partner at Ernst & Young, Isaac Ketiasapong, Ghana loses about $2 billion every year to non-compliance with international companies on transfer pricing rules. He spoke with Joy Business at the sidelines of a meeting with the regulators in Accra.
Are you complying? Are you paying the right price? And if everybody understands what the right price is, then we believe we can get people to pay.
To what extent is it affecting our revenue collection?
It is estimated that Ghana loses about $2 billion every year, due to transfer pricing. And we think it's a serious issue because government needs the revenue to develop the country. And if we're losing $2 billion every year, then it is critical. And that's why the commissioner of late has resorted to doing a lot of TP audits. And day in, day out, they are uncovering so many things. So it is time that we have to take this in seriously and begin to talk about them publicly.
But is it because of lack of capacity of the commissioners or, the tax collectors that we are losing that huge amount?
Of course, compliance is one thing, but getting people to comply is also another. The tax authority has a role to play, and the taxpayer also has a role to play. If I'm a taxpayer and I know that this is the law, this is my obligation, I have to do my bit. And the tax authority must also do its bit. So we all have equal responsibilities to make sure that we do the right things.
Now, we did not introduce new security features on upgraded banknotes because of serious counterfeiting that's coming from the Bank of Ghana. George Rafi has been engaging some officials of the central bank on this development and has the rest of the story.
There have been reports that the 50 banknotes as well as other high denominations have come under serious attack from counterfeiters, forcing the central bank to upgrade the current notes with new security features. But speaking to Joy Business ahead of currency management at the Bank of Ghana, John Jemfi said that is not the situation on the ground.
Most countries, on average, will change the entire family, those who have the means, every 7 years. That is on average. But then they will change it if the currency was under threat. Fortunately, we use the same international standards to monitor ours. And we have a benchmark of 100 counterfeit notes per million in circulation as our benchmark, that when we hit, then we have to introduce a whole new family or do a major upgrade.
Then if the level of counterfeiting wasn't threatening, then some would say that was it then necessary to introduce this upgrade again, looking at whatever minimal cost that will come to it?
So I have told you that it's a normal exercise we do periodically. 2 years, 3 years, monitoring our stocks, and then as the currency comes back to Bank of Ghana and we process, we see some are too weak, some are crumpled with a lot of graffiti, with sellotapes across, with holes in them, with the edges of the banknotes teared off. Those ones, we think that if they stay in circulation, our reputation is at stake.
He has also been speaking about why the 2 and the 5 Ghana cedi notes were not upgraded.
2 Ghana cedis and the 5 Ghana cedis with the portrait of Kweji Agri came in or were introduced as commemorative banknotes to start with. International best practice says that you don't upgrade commemorative banknotes. Why? Because they were introduced to mark a special occasion, to celebrate a special person at a particular landmark. And so if you attempt to change, you disturb the symbolism of the special occasion or character that it represents.
The Bank of Ghana has been tight-lipped about the cost, but the head of currency management assures what they spent wasn't out of place.
We budget for it. We may not do it every year, but we'll monitor our stocks, and when necessary, we go through the necessary tendering processes, the necessary selection contracts are firmed up, and then they are done. And everything will cost money. But we are always making sure that what we are going for. And one key thing in doing currency is that you want to make sure that the market value is far, sometimes 1,000 times in excess of the cost of printing the banknote.
So it's within budgets, it's within the accepted budget?
Sure, it is within our accepted budget.
It is the hope of the Bank of Ghana that the new features, the upgraded banknotes, will make it difficult for it to be counterfeited.
And the Institute of Directors Ghana has hinted of its intention to develop a mechanism to measure good corporate governance practices among directors of organizations in the country. Speaking to Joy Business, President of the Institute, Roxanne Dogbega, said the initiative will come with some severe sanctions like naming and shaming of directors who indulge in bad corporate governance at their workplace. He spoke to Joy Business at the gala dinner as part of the Institute's Corporate Governance Conference organized in Accra.
We are also advocating for the need to have a corporate governance barometer developed. And we're going to be doing this with support from IFC, that is International Finance Corporation. I can say that we are striking the right chords, and we believe that with the appetite of government to champion good corporate governance, to industrialize, to lead this country out of poverty, we will succeed, because we see the passion, the enthusiasm, the call on all not to be spectators. We will, as citizens, be partakers. We will get involved, and I, OD Ghana, will lead the campaign for change.
So you want to tell us more about this corporate governance barometer?
The corporate governance barometer will be a mechanism instituted to gauge the corporate governance fever in the country at any point in time. So it will tell how companies and organizations are performing as far as corporate governance is concerned. So whether they are abiding by the principles and practices will be reflected when we develop this code, and then the companies respond to it.
So will there be any sanctioning measures put in place to ensure that it's not just about naming and shaming, but as well dealing with directors who don't indulge in good corporate governance?
Yes. In fact, under the current bill, directors are encouraged to name and shame colleagues who are not doing the right thing in the boardroom. So that window has been created in the new bill. So if you're director, you're not doing the right things, your colleagues are supposed to report you, and that is good.
When should we expect this barometer come to full fruition?
We are still working on it. We're hoping that by the end of the year, we should be able to get the barometer out. We're looking to the corporate world for support and sponsorship. We cannot do this without resources. We want to call on all corporate organizations to lend their hand to support the good cause.
Meanwhile, Managing Director of Multi TV at the Multimedia Group, Santok Singh, was one of several top executives inducted as honorary fellows of the Institute of Directors Ghana. And we say congratulations to Mr. Singh. Turning attention now to oil and gas, Minister for Parliamentary Affairs, Osei Mensah-Bonsu, is warning there will soon be no funds for the running of GNPC's subsidiary wing, Exploco. Exploco was set up in 2013 to lead the national oil company's investments into exploration of oil blocks. But the majority leader says the move was disingenuous, as it was against the advice of Parliament. He says the continuous existence of the firm is not the best.
If you heard me, I even related to the motive for even creating the GNPC Exploco. Why? Because we as ourselves, I mean as a country, as Parliament, we have come to some agreement that no, the antecedents of GNPC, their overbearing posture and the effect on the national economy, the wastage that happened in the 80s, we're not going to encourage that again. So we said they were going to be regulators and not industry players. That's the law that we have fashioned. And now then they migrate outside to create another vehicle and say that they are going to fund it. When they themselves are fully funded by the state, what does it mean? A very disingenuous way of resurrecting their interests. So the motive for establishing Exploco itself should be questioned. But of course, we are out of that. And that's why we have zero rated it. And don't forget, as I reminded, in the Petroleum Revenue Management Act, we said to ourselves that 15 years after we started funding GNPC, because now they take about 40-45% of our national revenue, derived from petroleum. And we have said that 15 years from the creation of the Petroleum Revenue Management Act, we're going to stop. Do you know that we are into our 10th year? 5 years from now, the nation is not going to fund them again. So if they are not going to fund them, where are you going to get money to fund the Exploco? And they are not in a position to borrow on account of their own money, on their own books.
Right, so we want to stay on this topic a bit further, and we're getting the views of energy expert Kwajupuku on the position of the majority on this matter. He joins us on phone. Good afternoon, sir. Welcome to the Marketplace.
Good afternoon, and good afternoon to your viewers.
All right, so I believe you've been listening to the majority leader on his views about the formation of Exploco, and for which he says is an ingenious move to the country. What's your take on that?
Well, it's very confusing, to say the least. From what Mr. Osei-Chegonsu is saying, in 5 years' time, if government is no longer going to fund GMPC, then government should allow GMPC to make certain investments, which in 5 years' time they can rely on to fund themselves. As we speak now, GMPC does not have any internally generated revenue streams. So it really becomes mind-boggling when, in one hand, you are saying that you are not going to allow them to make some investments by taking part in commercial exploration because they are funded by government. But in another breath, you go on to say that in 5 years' time, you are going to defund them and they have to rely on their own. If they have to rely on their own, what money are they going to use to be on their own? Some of these have to be looked at holistically.
All right. Now, Mr.
As we speak, okay.
Yeah, so can you give us some education here? I mean, we're talking about Exploco as, I mean, an oil...
What we have is that GMPC as a company only represents government in an oil petroleum agreement. So when companies are coming in to sign the petroleum agreement, government of Ghana has a stake in that agreement. So government of Ghana represents the whole of us, BNU, to take a certain percentage, which GMPC represents in that agreement. What means is that, let's say in the recent times, we've heard that the government gets 15% carried interest. So that 15% carried interest is represented by GMPC, which in actual fact is the government that has that 15%. So when, let's say, there is a fine in fine oil, like in the case of Tulo or Cosmos or any ENI block, what happens is that the 15% stake that government gets is the 15% which GMPC is holding in that block. So whatever GMPC gets go to the account which is managed by the Petroleum Revenue Management Act. GMPC themselves does not have anything. That is why government has to give them money to basically pay all these cash calls. But from what the majority leader is saying, if you're going to defund them in 5 years, it means that GMPC as a company should have internally generated revenue.
Now, Mr. Poku, is it not just an issue of nomenclature? I mean, Exploco and GNPC, is not the same thing, basically?
It's the same. GNPC, and you see, what the previous administration tried to do was to form Exploco to go into commercial activities so that you can separate the activities of GNPC, which represents government, and Exploco, which will not represent government, but only do commercial activity. So they will not be carried as an interest.
And is that a good move?
Well, brother, it's either not here nor there. I mean, if you want to say it's a good move, it depends which equation you're looking at. For me, I thought it was a good thing when we are saying that, look, as a country, we do not have money, so let's not go and do commercial activities and risk money that we don't have. Okay? That is a good thing. Because I don't think that our little monies that we have as a country, we should be using it to risk it in petroleum commercial activities. But if the future goal is that you have, in 5 years, you're going to stop funding GMPC, then you have to allow them to make some of these investments. Because the only way they can have a revenue stream is returns on the investment they make. So it's a bit confusing. For me, I thought the conversation has ended with what the majority said a couple of days ago, that they don't want government to risk money. But for the majority leader to come and say that now in 5 years they are going to stop defunding because
is the law actually the law, the Petroleum Revenue Management Act, which specifies or stipulates this particular directive?
Yes, but if that's the case, then somebody has to say. and ask that the question I'm asking, and some of you journalists have to ask the majority leader is that, okay, so in 5 years, when if we stop funding GMPC, how are they going to fund themselves? We are not allowing them to make the necessary investment that they can use.
GMPC is supposed to have some blocks which are reserved, exclusively for its exploration alone. Can't it, do business with that?
Yes, but that is the conversation that we are having. If JMPC has a block which is exclusively given to them, what are they going to do? Are they not going to spend money to do the exploration? Okay. Which is the same thing that Exploko was to do in the AGM block that the government is telling us that we do not want to risk government money. But if you're going to have a block to yourself and you're going to now drill that money, isn't the same thing? So in one breath, we cannot say in one breath we don't have money, and then we say that in another breath, GMPC has some block that they are going to explore. If GMPC is going to explore, then it defeats the conversation and the argument all of us had made in the last couple of weeks. So it's either or. It's either the government wants GMPC to do commercial activities, so we find the money for them to do that. Or we don't want them to do commercial activities, and GMPC just stays there and do the carried interest and the royalties, and we fund them forever. But if you're going to defund them in 5 years, then how are they going to make revenue?
All right, many thanks for your time and for those thoughts there. Kwadwo Poku is an energy expert. He's been adding his voice to the decision by the majority, or the suggestion by the majority to scrap Exploko, the subsidiary wing of GNPC, which should be involved in exploration of crude oil. Away from that, about 2,600 child laborers and their guardians are being targeted for livelihood empowerment to address the phenomenon of using minors for hazardous work. Local non-governmental organization Pledge Ghana is implementing the initiative under the UNICEF Technical Assistance Project in 2 regions of Ghana. Love FM's Kwesi Debra has more in this report.
20 communities in 10 districts in Ashanti and Upper West regions are benefiting from the project. Kumasi Metro, Ejusujabe Municipality, Dafiama, Busie, Isa and Lambusie districts are among implementing zones. The theme is addressing child labor and all its worst forms through a reverse invalidation approach. Antoine De League is child protection specialist of UNICEF.
As we celebrate the 30th anniversary on the Convention of the Right of the Child, we know that child labor is preventable and it's not inevitable. UNICEF believes that effective action against child labor is required to place the child and the children at the center of program designated to protect children's rights. Looking at child labor through a broader lens and addressing the root cause of child labor will be able to address the full range of children's vulnerability and protection challenges.
As Kwamampo Municipal Director of Social Welfare, Esther Prekunyako is worried Ghana may be losing the fight against child labor despite persistent efforts.
We are all aware that there are a lot of state agencies who are supposed to collaborate to address this canker of child labor, be it Department of Social Welfare and Community Development, the STRAD, the police, domestic violence and victim support units, and all agencies that you can name of. All these agencies are supposed to combine efforts to address them. But it looks as if we are still losing the fights.
The forum will provide platform for exchange of knowledge and good practices on child labor in implemented districts and ways to address them. The outcome will provide guidance on tackling seasonal migrant labor in Ghana. David Atiga is Executive Director, Pledge Ghana.
And it is now our responsibility to collectively put our heads together to see how we will take advantage of this to encourage the families, the children, to focus on education, because when we are talking of poverty, it is education that can take it off. If we are talking of disease, it is education that will take it off. Wherever there are issues and problems, if you are well educated and informed, you will stand a better chance of understanding the issues and be able to address it effectively. If we recall where
for
some of
JoyNews,
us are coming from.
And on that note, we wrap up this afternoon's edition of Marketplace. My name is Emmanuel Abuaji. We have many thanks for your company. Have a good afternoon.